As Israel's attacks on Gaza continue, the search for peace and justice in the Middle East is more critical than ever. The severe humanitarian crisis faced by the Palestinian people is on the world's agenda. Today, we will discuss these issues with my guest, Rabbi Dovid Weiss, a leading figure of the Neturei Karta movement, known for his stance against Zionism. Rabbi Dovid Weiss, thank you for accepting our interview. It's important, your voice for whole world. Thank you so much. It's so grateful to be here with us. And you know, everybody supposes that Jewish people are Zionists. But it's so important point. Is every Jewish living in Israel a Zionist?
So first, with the help of the Almighty, I pray that He should bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message, and so sanctify His name and bring peace to the world. Amen. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so very much for giving me the honor and privilege of being on your show. And this is an opportunity to clarify to the world exactly like the question you're answering, questions that bring to an estrangement and a rift between Jews and Muslims, and ultimately and the death of the people in Gaza, the tragedy, the Nakba. So it's all because of a misrepresentation of religions, of Judaism. So it's really critical. The question you're answering are people living in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, which they call today the State of Israel. Are they automatically, if they're Jewish, are they Zionists? And the answer is emphatically and clearly absolutely not. In fact, the most ardent opposers of Zionism live in the streets of Al-Quds, of Jerusalem, and throughout occupied Palestine. Simply, the Jewish people who were residing in the Ottoman Empire and residing in Palestine and throughout the Muslim world were very God-fearing Jews, living there for hundreds of years and thousands of years. And these Jews, because they were religious Jews, observing the Torah, upholding the Torah, they therefore were opposed to this ersatz Judaism, this phony, false Judaism called Zionism. Zionism is a pure political movement that was started by Theodor Herzl and his cohorts. We can show you, I show you a picture of when they made the State of Israel. This is Theodor Herzl by the most the momentous occasion for Zionism by the Declaration of Independence in Independence Hall. And what do we see here? We see a picture of Theodor Herzl, Stars of David, which is a Jewish symbol, and the deists, the leaders of this Zionist movement by the Declaration of Independence, they're not covering their heads. They don't have beards. They don't have all the symbols of a Jew. Not only symbols, a Jew is required to cover one's head as a male Jew to show that we believe there's a God above us. It's called a yarmulke, what I'm wearing under my hat, the yarmulke, Yorei Malka, that's acronym for Yorei Malka, we fear king. A Jew is required to cover his head. Here, they're coming together publicly in front of the whole world to announce they're making a Jewish state, and they're spitting, God forbid, in the face of God. They're not even upholding the laws of a Jew, and they're calling it a Jewish state. So you see the hypocrisy, the falseness, the brazen rebellion against God when they made the Zionist State of Israel. And not surprisingly, the rabbis that were living there, the community that was living there, starting with the chief rabbis of Palestine, who was in 1947, Rabbi Dushinsky, of the blessed memory, in the United Nations documents in July 16, 1947, that was before the United Nations ratified the state, which was in 1948. And he pleaded with the United Nations. He said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." And this wasn't because he was an anti-Semite. He was a Jew who was leading the Jewish community. But he said this is not Jewish. Jewish is to serve God. It is a covenant we made with God over 3,000 years ago, not to kill, not to steal, to emulate God. Mahu rachum afatate rachum. It's similar in Arabic. Just as God is compassionate, you should be compassionate. To keep the laws of the Torah. That's what we're doing for over 3,000 years. That's what it means to be a Jew. Zionism comes along, a group of heretics in Europe, mind you, started in Europe, in Vienna, Austria. They were totally non-religious. They threw away the religion. They threw away the Sabbath, upholding the Sabbath. They ate pig, everything you would like. They totally detested and revolted against God. And they decided they wanted a national home. If they'll go to Palestine, then they can announce to the world, we're a Jewish state, God gave us the land like in the Bible, and the Christians, evangelists, because everybody believes in the Bible, and everybody will support them, so they'll go there. Okay, it's not such a lush land, but they'll develop it, so they'll go there and they'll make a state. But how could they do that? They're going and taking a land which was inhabited by the Palestinian people. That's not a problem. You simply make them disappear. So this movement of Zionism is corrupt in its core. It's corrupt because it's against God in its essence. Judaism is to serve God, not to make a national home. It's against God because you're not allowed to kill or steal. And you're going to create your state by going and co-opting, taking over the homes and lives of the inhabitants, the Palestinian people. And thirdly, we have to remember Jews and Muslims were living together for hundreds of years. Oh, and as Arabs and people in Persia and in Yemen and all the lands in Egypt and in Palestine, we were living for thousands of years as individuals. Jews were living there amongst the greater community. And for over 1,000 years when there was Islam, it was for the majority of people living there up to the present day were Muslim. So the Jews were living amongst them. Not only they were living amongst them, but when Jews were being murdered, and there was the Inquisition, there was the Crusades, Jews were literally murdered if they didn't convert to Christianity. The Jews were banished from lands, Portugal, Spain, and they were all murdered. And the Jews found a home. They were embraced and taken in by the Muslims. So even though we have a distinctly different religion, it wasn't an impediment to peace. We were embraced and given a home. The Muslims understood we're not aspiring to take over any land. We just want to serve God. So they took us in, and we were able to flourish as distinctly religious Jews amongst the distinctly religious Arabs and Muslims. You can see the pictures how we lived together, Jews and Muslims, in the streets of Al-Quds of Jerusalem, as we did in Iraq and the Ottoman Empire. Here, we lived in Turkey. We lived for so many hundreds of years. Everybody knows that. It's a fact on the ground. So what changed? If it's a war of religions, so then we should have been murdering each other for all these hundreds of years. But that didn't happen. But there was no human rights groups. We lived and flourished. So what changed? The introduction of this selfish, flawed, political nationalist movement called Zionism that came from Europe, put themselves down in the home of this beautiful fabric of Muslims, Christians, Jews living together in the Holy Land in peace and brotherhood, babysitting each other's children. They came along and decided to establish it's their national home, falsifying the Torah, saying God told us to take the land, it's ours. So they're corrupt. And therefore, it's very logical, and it's the fact that the communities living there, and the tens and hundreds of thousands of Jews who were living there prior to the state, this is a picture where they're taking up the next chief rabbi after the Rabbi Dushinsky passed on, the one who stood up in 1947 in opposition to the state of Israel. So they took up the next chief rabbi. You see tens of thousands anti-Zionist Jews and more. You can see in America, when Bibi Netanyahu came to visit President Obama, for instance, tens of thousands of Jews demonstrating, stating, Bibi Netanyahu and the state of Israel does not represent world Jewry. Israel has no right to rule over any part of the Holy Land. They demonstrated for over 77 years. They've been brutal. Here you can see the demonstrations in all parts, wherever there's a very religious community, and you can see how Jews are being arrested because they refuse to serve in the Israeli army, which is mandatory Israeli service in the army, IDF they called it, the Israeli Defense Force they called it, which is an offense force. And here you can see how they're being brutally attacked. Children, old rabbis. 77 years we have this and ongoing because we don't carry guns. So the Palestinians, they've labeled as terrorists. But these old rabbis and young children, the Jewish people, they haven't been able to solidify a narrative like that. So why are they brutally beating them, killing them, attacking them viciously, arresting them in the streets of Jerusalem for 77 years? Because we're standing there and declaring that the Zionists are bogus, they're illegitimate, they're illegal. What they're doing to the people in Gaza is satanic. There's no other words. And it's unacceptable. The streets of Jerusalem here, they're spraying them here by demonstrations with chemicals. It's called stink water to destroy the coast, to discourage demonstrations. And we have on and on these pictures. Here you see, stop Zionist terrorist massacre in Gaza. And we have so many pictures. I have reams and reams of pictures of this. This is what we are talking about, that the Jews in Palestine have been always standing in opposition. Their voice is totally ignored, as if they don't exist. The invisibles, like you call in India, there was an invisibles. These Jews are considered invisible for over 77 years. They've been murdered. Here you see a picture when President Yasser Arafat made the PLO many years ago. So he had one of his members of his parliament, of his team, was a Jewish rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Hirsch of blessed memory. He lived in Jerusalem. The Zionists put acid in his face. He was blind in one eye, barely able to see the other. And this is in Gaza. We went to visit Ismail Haniyeh, the prime minister then. Jews have been always here. Jews, you can see just pictures here's of women, here of men. They're just arrested constantly, and the world doesn't make an issue of it. If this would happen, God forbid, I don't want to even say in Turkey, in the United States, in Canada, any country, once a Jew would be attacked like that by the government, then Netanyahu would be the first on a plane with his henchmen, screaming anti-Semitism, accusing the countries of anti-Semitism, and demanding reparations for their state. That's what they would be doing. But they do it with impunity. They beat up the Jews who demonstrate against them. And there would be hundreds of thousands more demonstrating if it wouldn't be for their viciousness, the way they attack. I'm here in Turkey. In the middle of the night this night, I got a harassing call in the middle of the night. How they followed me to Turkey, I don't know, but that's the fact. We get death threats, and this is somebody who's from New York. I'm not talking about the ones in Palestine. They literally get murdered. Like I say, there's so many more issues to confront, but so I'm not going to go. But this was sent to me, this is from 4 weeks ago now. Children being brutally attacked. This demonstrations, by the way, is not the one about Gaza. This one is demonstrations because the Zionists are digging up in Yahud, it's called, graves, because they have no respect for the dead either, Jewish dead also. They have no respect. They don't have respect for God, so there's no sanctity. So they're digging up the graves because they want to build there or something. So they're digging up graves, and the Jews are standing there trying to protect the graves. And their soldiers stand there and brutally beat them. There's rivers of blood from the years of what's happening. This is ongoing. Nobody says a word. If somebody would dig up one Jewish grave, or you paint a swastika, or dig up a grave in another country, they're all over it. But not in Israel. They have impunity to kill the people in Gaza, to brutally attack the Jews who stand in opposition, and it's the Satan's power that's incomprehensible, but God is greater, and it will end.
What is the goal of the Israel government in Middle East?
Well, the goal is they want, I pray to the Almighty I can clarify this, they want to be their own God, their own boss. They'll do freely, with impunity, unchecked, to be able to rule, control the areas, whatever they decide they want as their areas, and disregard the humanity that it affects. And they want the recognition from all the countries that what they're doing is justified, and if anybody who looks as if they're committing a crime, that they should be considered the criminals, they should be considered evil. And they gave a terminology for it. They call it anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic if you oppose them. Now, how did they take that narrative? Simply, they took the Star of David, the abuse of the Star of David that they're using, the name Judaism, they call it the Jewish state, even though the very religious communities around the world. And that's why the rabbis, we put out a book called The Rabbis Speak Out, which is a compilation of all the major leading rabbis from around the world. From it's 130 years, as you see, that means before the state. The state was 77 years, and each one in their style. The Chafetz Chaim, the Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen, who passed away in 1933, before the state was created, and he's the one who compiled Jewish law, condensed it, and everybody uses his law books. He lived in Radin in Lithuania, I believe, or Poland, and he stated, the Zionists are dead limbs of our people, which causes the entire body to rot. It's Judaism and Zionism not the same. Now, I want to state clearly, with God's help, the textbook definition of anti-Semitism is the Zionist state of Israel. They are the personification of anti-Semitism. They're killing people in Gaza, in all around the whole area there. They're subjecting people to terror, to inhumanity, and the Jews also. Whoever opposes them, they've created hate between Jews and Muslims also around the world because they've driven a rift. We live together in peace. So they have exacerbated the hate of Jews, anti-Semitism. Why? Because they want a selfish occupation of a piece of land. Not because of the religion, because they want their home over there. They've caused a havoc around the world. So you have, they're killing people in Gaza, they're killing Jews also, and their own soldiers are dying for a cause, for simple a land grab, and then they're causing hate around the world. So on top of that, if God forbid somebody will be a true anti-Semite, like a Nazi, in some ways in the world, and I'm going to start screaming, hey, that guy's a Nazi. They'll look at me, they'll say, oh, I heard you talking about anti-Semitism. It's a lot of baloney. That's the boy who cried wolf. So they are the worst. They are the textbook definition of anti-Semitism, the worst enemy of the Jewish people. How dare they refer to people who give of their lives to stand up for the people of Palestine as anti-Semitic? They are the anti-Semites. And I have the license to say so. My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped from the Nazis. My father-in-law was in the death march by Auschwitz. Or almost the entire families of both my mother, blessed memory, from Poland, and my father from Hungary, were killed by the Nazis. We suffered because we were Jews. How dare they take the bodies of the one who were burnt and gassed and use the ashes as a tool in order to develop their nationalistic ambitions to take over Palestine, and use it as a guilt ride that if anybody stands up against them, they say, oh, the Holocaust. They're using the Holocaust. They're using Jewish blood and ashes. People who were God-fearing, my grandparents of blessed memory were God-fearing, anti-Zionists. The whole community was anti-Zionists in Europe. They're taking these people who died for God, for their religion, and they're using them for their corrupt Judaism. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable when we plead with the world leaders that they should stand up and do the will of the Almighty and save the people of Gaza.
What is the Zionist government's goal in Turkey? Is there any possibility Israel will attack the Turkey?
We're not prophets. We know what God says. Serve me, do kindness, do charity, don't steal, don't kill, don't occupy, don't be a Zionist. Very clear what the Torah says. So we don't know what their plans with Turkey. Their plans is to, like I say, to be able to develop themselves, and anything that stands in its way gets mowed down. So Turkey, we have absolutely no idea what they will do. But we do know that Turkey and President Erdogan and the Turkey, with the nation of Turkey backing, is steadfast and unintimidated in standing up for the people of Palestine or the people of Gaza. Many times rebuked the state of Israel and stood up to that. So that's to be lauded for that. And therefore, what the Zionists will do, we don't know. But there's a great God. We have to do what's right and to be proud. The people of Turkey, for how many demonstrations, IHH and the other, and I was here by demonstrations, mass demonstrations, and you had the Mavi Marmara ship that went out, one of the first flotillas that went out from Turkey. So it's to be lauded, and we are very thankful to the people of Turkey, and as I say, the government of Turkey, who are standing up to this evil, and God help that we should be successful. God should see this work and bring an end of this to this evil, this essence of evil, what's happening in Gaza and what's happening to the whole Palestine. It should be removed, God help, speedily and peacefully.
What is Zionism's role in failure to achieve peace in the Middle East?
There was peace before there was Zionism. We were living, Jews and Muslims, we were living together for so many hundreds of years. As I say, that we are so thankful to the Muslim countries. I just came, before I came here to the studio, I went to visit my wife's grandfather, who's buried here, who was Rabbi Naftali Katz of blessed memory. He's a rabbi of 14 generations before already. That's a couple of hundred years ago. And he's buried here. He was a great rabbi. This is how the Jewish community, they flourished here. They lived here. They lived in Muslim countries. There was peace because there's no reason for not to have peace. The difference of religion was never an issue. We don't have a religious conflict between Jews and Muslims or between Judaism and Islam. We have a conflict against religion. We have a conflict of criminals, satanic criminals against God and against religion. That is what we're witnessing. They're masquerading in humanity. They're masquerading in religion. But it's not that at all. So when you say, well, what's the solution? The solution is to recognize, to diagnose what the sickness is in order to bring a resolution. What is the diagnosis? That we don't have a religious conflict, that we don't have a problem of Jews and Muslims living together. We have a problem of an interloper, a movement that started a mere 77 years as a state, but a little over 100 years, that came into this beautiful fabric called the Holy Land, into Al-Quds, into Palestine. And they decided to establish, let's say, like an apartheid. People of Gaza are the victims. The people of Gaza are innocent. The Jewish people around the world who are pleading with the world and saying that it's not our religion. We are the victims of this co-opting of our religion, of this satanic evil and the occupation.
Should there be a state called Palestine? Where should it be?
Where should Palestine be? In Palestine. Palestine is a beautiful big land. It's been there, and it should continue to be there. A free Palestine. There's no question. That is what what it has to be. What shouldn't be there is this nasty occupation called Zionism in the state of Israel. Again, we pray to God it should happen speedily and peacefully, without any further death or suffering. And God is capable of doing that. Apartheid ended pretty fast. USSR, they didn't allow religion, and overnight, pretty much, it just ended. And today they allow religion, of course. They support religion. So the concept is, God is capable of everything. In a minute it can end, in a blink of an eye. That's why this coming week is the New Year by Jewish people. And we say in our prayers, that we pray. It's one of the main prayers we say with very failing song. The way we pray to God that they should put into the hearts and souls of the kings and leaders that they should strive for peace.
So, under what conditions are Palestinians living now?
They're living in hell. Basically, they've been living in hell for 77 years since the occupation. But it's not only the Palestinian Muslims, the Jewish people, the Jewish religion. We went through the Holocaust. The Zionism is criminal. Zionism is evil. It's satanic. But since the attack by October 7th, afterwards, since then, people are seeing on their telephones, they're seeing on their smartphones, they're seeing every single day just endless, relentless bombing. And so the first few days, people said, okay, they're answering, they're just simply trying to save the hostages and on. But they've been witnessing this day in and day out, how they bombed hospitals, bombed buildings. And every time, at the beginning, first they said, it was Palestinians bombed it, the Palestinians did this, everything. You know, how many times a person can lie through their teeth and get away with it today? I mean, we know, like the world says, when they open their mouths, the state of Israel, that you know they're lying, that they don't have food, that the children are dying from, emaciated, dying from hunger. I was just by a conference where a person said he saw, I believe he himself saw, how, I can't even repeat, a lady cut her fingers so she can give the blood from her fingers to her child to eat, to drink, because they didn't have. I mean, I could tell you so many different stories. It's just chilling. But the word is, it's satanic. It's satanic and it's not Jewish. I like to carry around, I've carried many years, I carry around, I was in Baja Barajna, we went to Lebanon, we visited Sabra Shaltila, we visited Baja Barajna, one of the largest camps, refugee camps, and they came and to see the hearts of the Palestinian people. We went to visit Gaza, we went to visit the ones who were alive still. And a year later, they were still living in tents. They didn't have food and water. It's not in the middle of some desert. The world saw this shocking event. And instead of helping them, they still didn't. Why? Because they buy into the Israeli narrative. It's inhumane. How could you buy into it? They should have seen this is terrible. So at least give these families homes. It's in the freezing cold in the winter, no food and water, brackish, tainted water, tents in the summer in the heat. The same thing, we went to Baja Barajna. We went to Lebanon. We went to visit. We cried with them. They embraced us, even though I'm Jewish. It's unbelievable. Even the ones in Gaza, they embraced us, even though we went to visit the orphanages, the hospitals. Even we went to the Mavi Marvara. We went to Baja Barajna, as I say. They gave me a key. They want their homes. They want to return to the homes. That's all they want. They're not looking for revenge. This is what we have to take away, this impediment to peace. And we pray for this. God, with His compassion, will bring a free Palestine. A key to the homes that everybody should have to the homes, return to the homes. And it will happen, like I say. That will happen.
USA President Donald Trump and Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have a plan to push Palestinians from Gaza to neighboring countries. Should this plan happen?
We say there has to be a free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Let's get this straight. It's a land that belongs to the people of Palestine. And with all the greatest respect for our president, but I want to warn him that he's putting himself in great danger when he sits together with Netanyahu. He's a very evil man. He should be very careful who he's sitting with. He's our president. We have to pray for his well-being, that he should not be meeting with this guy Netanyahu. It's really, we used to say when you go to a thief, you don't shake his hand because you have to count your fingers. If you didn't lose anything. I mean, he's dealing with this is the Satan. Zionism is the Satan. So when he talks about that they should move to another land, God forbid, they have their homes. This is their home. And it has to be free, and it will be free.
Why don't Muslim countries take action against Israel?
Remember, as a Jew, I have to always speak with respect and about other people. We don't understand. I tell you, sometimes the Satan, we say, many people who do evil believe they're doing good, or else they wouldn't do it. So why are they being punished? It's unfortunately the countries that are trying to support and to make peace with the situation in Palestine that Israel should occupy, unfortunately the Satan is misleading them. It's wrong that they should steal the rights of the Palestinian people just because Israel has this power and so forth. Israel is the depth of evil, it's the depth of criminality. And the world that's agreeing with them, that's trying to, is because they're being duped and conned and fooled by the Satan. So we plead with these world leaders, step aside from your pressures that you are having, and do what's godly and what's right. And let's save the people of Gaza and Palestine. It will happen. Let's be on the right side of history.
Thank you so much for your valuable response and informations.
Thank you, shukran, tashakur. I appreciate it. For us, it's critical that the world should understand what the problem is, and that Judaism and Zionism is not the same. And as Jews, we're crying with the people of Gaza, of Palestine, and God will help bring a free Palestine. Thank you.